topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Are you ready to take a journey? Let's connect with the healers of the world. It's that time. It's time for the Language of Healing on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Now here's your host, Emotional Wisdom Training Specialist Nicole Fortin.
Hello and welcome all of you beautiful souls that are joining me today on the Language of Healing. We are March 18th, 2022, and coming up to the spring equinox on March 20th, Sunday. And so you may have already noticed some of this energy moving and transitioning into lighter days. I know I'm really noticing that too, and we just went through a time change, so it's like just noticing and paying attention to the nice light and the warmer days. It's very welcoming here in my world. And I thought it would be a good opportunity for us to dive in a little bit more into the spring, what that means, what's coming up for us around traditional Chinese medicine point of view, because there is so much richness in there that I want to share and that will support you in transitioning through this time of year, because it can be a bit of a hard transition for some as we come out of the winter, and the spring requires a bit more energy. Like the springtime is all about outward expansion, and we might not really feel like moving outward and expanding, or maybe in some parts of your life you've noticed some of that movement, and in others maybe there's a little bit more resistance, because there is of course a lot going on in the world around us, maybe in our internal environment, external environment. The spring brings the wind, right? The winds of change that can stir things up and create a bit of chaos. And so this last month, as we've been preparing because the peak of spring is on the 20th, right? So for the last, and say like every season is 12 weeks. So if you split that in half, so the peak is at that 6-week mark. So the 6 weeks before and after are kind of that, in my mind, like a little, part of that season 2, that transition period. And in any transition, it's really good to ground, center, recalibrate, if you will, because as we move and transition into the new position or the new energy, we want to first, sit and be present and reflect on where we've come from, and then being in the present moment, taking all of that information and then creating the new future, right? So the springtime is all about the energy of building a brighter future. And so there is so many aspects of that going on. And I think that there's, the gloominess of winter, the dark days, dark and cold. And, as we go through the holidays, lots of things get stirred up, maybe like emotionally, and there's just a lot of emotions are still running high. So the Language of Healing is here to help you decipher some of those messages that are coming up for you, whether they be in your body or in your thoughts, your mind, your heart, your spirit, like what really wants to be heard, what message does it have to share, what does that mean for you moving forward, and ultimately, how can it support you in moving towards more of what you want. And so part of that language is understanding or observing the natural energies, natural feelings of the season, because we're very cyclical in nature, right? Like we do observe the cycle of the sun and the moon every day. It's, the sun is rising and setting, the moon is rising and setting. That's a full cycle. And we cycle through the week, we cycle through the month, through the season, through the year. And so the more we can read and interpret these different energies, because they do have different characteristics, right? Then we can use it to our advantage. And so some things, just take this time with me today to reground, recenter, and set yourself up for a smooth transition into the spring. We'll start with some of the things you may notice around this time of year. If some things are a little bit out of balance, because of the wind, so the winds of change are coming in. This can affect our body and our mind, right? And our heart, spirit, in ways that the wind does. So the wind comes and blows all the dust. It's it can create, tornadoes. And we've talked about the spin cycles. So you might notice some of that stuff coming up, right? Like you're spinning with thoughts and feelings and situations, replaying conversations in your mind, or really thinking about all of the what ifs, getting caught up in the what ifs or the shoulds, right? Like I should have done this, should have done that. And so that's okay. That's all very much part of the energy here. And, when we're talking about renewal and expansion and this outward movement, it's important to remember that everything comes out in the wash. So when we spin, we get an opportunity to look at everything that's around us. We're spinning to gather more information, right? We're spinning to put attention on a spot, and we're spot treating it, and we're cycling it through the washing machine. And then it does come out clean, right? So it's important to keep grounded and centered in that spin. And by doing that, you're staying connected to life force, or staying connected to what the true intention is, where the true motivator is, what really gets you moving and supported through the transitions. And so maybe there's of course lots going on in the news and in the world, and you might be affected by that. There's also maybe news that has come to you around health or business, relationships, that isn't really what you want, or is a bit harder to be with, to really sit with. And so I just want you to notice some of that resistance that's coming up. And this is the perfect time of year to work with the spins, in clearing out the clutter, the feeling of spring cleaning. That's a very natural thing to do at this time of year, as the budding plants, or the plants are beginning to bud, and they want to grow and expand and reach out, right? They're reaching for the sun. They're ready and enjoying the extra daylight hours. And so we want to be like that too. There might be some parts that are a little bit stuck and that leave us feeling overwhelmed, caught in a cycle of worry. And we have a question here, Rachel. Hello, Rachel. What can we do to balance the thoughts as they spin? Good question. What can we do to balance the thoughts as we spin? I think it's very good to first, recognizing them, because they're coming up for something, right? I think if we try to resist them, then they just keep, what you resist persists. So the thoughts, spinning thoughts. This kind of brings into this energy of this liver time, first, maybe I didn't mention that yet, but the energy of the spring season. I'll give you some context, Rachel, and then I'll come back to that question, because every season is related to a different element from the 5-element theory that comes from traditional Chinese medicine. And so we'll talk about the winter season that we're coming out of is the water element, and it's related to, kind of like going inward and deeper, like a deep resource, deep pond, right? And then the spring is associated with wood. So that's like plants, and the flora that's around us. So as we in the spring, we transition into like this green, budding, flourishing thing. So the energy of the winter is more about connecting into like deeper into yourself, that inner realm, the reflection, the hibernation, the rest, the recovery, the recuperation, the deeper desires. So it's like what you're desiring. And when we start the new year out with New Year's resolutions or intentions that we want for ourselves, this is coming from that water element of it's the stuff that nourishes us, right? Like what feeds your soul, what feeds your body, what feeds your heart. This is what the winter energy is for, right? So then when we move into spring, that is more of the planning, organizing thoughts, right? So pay attention to what kind of thoughts are you spinning with. And maybe they're related to you having to, or wanting this inner desire to want to bring to fruition something that's been nesting, I guess, in this dwelling place of desire. There's so many thoughts, right? Like we could, if thoughts are kind of like worrying, there's like positive thoughts, negative thoughts. And so it's just really about paying attention to it. And where is that fitting into where I'm going now? And this must be why we spring clean. Yeah, exactly. It's like we have an opportunity now to clean out what's not really supporting us anymore. Or like, the spring cleaning, it's like you get rid of some things or you pass them on, because although you're very grateful for having them in your life and moving forward, are they best lined with what you want moving forward? Because everything can be, and sharing, and that sense of benevolence or generosity is also part of this springtime energy. So giving and receiving is very healthy, I would say, a healthy movement. So thoughts are kind of the same, and when they're coming up in that spin cycle, it's great. It's like you're now with your grounded centerness, you can look at everything spinning around you, and it's like, okay, what is really important for me right now to move forward? Is it beneficial for me to worry about this obsessively? What is it that I actually really want from that? And this energy of the spring is also about trust and being honest. So, maybe taking those thoughts a little bit deeper. But really how do I kind of explain this a little bit? Is this thought, this energy of the spring happens also because it's governed by the wood element. So like things flourishing and growing and expanding and renewal, right? The strength and the courage and showing up. It's like outward expansion. And that cycle also happens every day, right? Like we're all cyclical. Everything can be broken down into every day. So every day we have this boost of creative energy, that wood energy, and it happens in the evening. And that creative energy is used to replenish our reserves I guess, repair the nervous system. It's also connected to our rational thinking. So going back to the thoughts that are spinning, it's common if you have some thoughts that are getting your attention to be stuck in a loop of overthinking through the night and then not sleeping. Maybe you've experienced this. I definitely have. I think, you're just like thinking about all the things, like, what do I have to do? Like, tomorrow I have to have this conversation. Oh, I had this conversation and it went this way and I wish it went another way, or whatever, right? Like, you're ruminating over something, or you're worried about someone, and so it can become a little bit out of balance. Like, that's one way that you might see that show up on a daily basis, right? So if you have this pattern showing up regularly throughout the year, the springtime is like super heightened. So we're going to work with that, what to do with it. And really, this time of year is all about organizing chaos. So it's a really good time to write down all of your thoughts, because the wood element is governed by, in Chinese medicine, the liver and the gallbladder. So every element has organs that are connected to it. So if it's kind of a new idea to you, don't worry. Just take what I'm saying here and apply it to now, today, because this energy will still be relatable, whether you fully understand it or not. But this is also part of the language, right? We're like training and becoming more fluent in this language of our nature, our natural environment, external and internal, and how they work together, and how we can work them, to become more smooth for easier living, right? So the liver is known as, its position in the body is like the general of like a military operation, right? It's the general. It's in charge of directing, like planning and organizing and strategizing. And it wants to keep moving forward, just like the trees or the plants. They want to grow, they want to reach out, and they want to expand. They want to catch as much sunlight as possible. There's even that competition within that plant realm of reaching more for the sunlight, right? Like, and if there's shade, or if there's darkness, you find ways to keep reaching for the light. And so what it naturally wants to do is to like grow and expand in planning, organizing, strategizing. And it's also part of the vision, right? Like seeing something that you want and planning and organizing around it. So when your thoughts are coming up obsessively, especially at night time, I always suggest writing it down, like journal it, because, or, put a little note in your phone, and just to get it off of your mind, because then it goes in from the heady space into material realm. And then when you see those thoughts, and even like thoughts and feelings, I will add that in there too, because some feelings come up, and it's really best to honor that. When you write them down or you journal them, it gives them a voice, it gives them validity, like as if you've listened to them. And oftentimes that's just enough to settle the mind, because now you can wake up in the morning and you have this list that you've created, or these thoughts that you've because I think we spin because we don't want to forget either, right? It's like, oh, there's important information here. So yes, if it's important information, write it down. Like, start creating a little bit of a inner discovery journal for yourself. That's one thing that I would really recommend for this spring season, where the energy is really good at that, because it's cleansing. Then you can see with this list, like, what there's also the energy of indecisiveness that can come up around this. So when you write down things that you're thinking about, it it adds awareness, I guess, because then you come back to it, you read it, you see it from an outside perspective, you disassociated from it then, right? And you can kind of categorize it, right? Like that's what the general wants to do, wants to like give direction, give purpose. And another way to find if you have a little bit of imbalance in this realm is if you're really lost from your purpose, or you really like don't see the light ahead, right? So when we're guiding and walking along our path, we want to see that. And sometimes we just lose sight of it. It becomes really cloudy and even foggy where we can't see anything in front of us. So this time of year is really supportive to clearing out the clutter, clearing out the clouds, like unclouding your vision, and supporting those structures that are going to help you move forward. So the liver, it needs direction. It wants clarity to really fully carry out its purpose. Yeah. Wow. Good. Okay. There's lots there with it. Where do I want to go next? Because this morning I was really inspired. I sometimes work with, oracle cards or the tarot deck. It's kind of fun. I'm really imagination kind of person, which is also very characteristic of the spring season. Imagination and playfulness, and it's like the curiosity to just grow and expand. I pulled so I worked with some cards here. I have this awesome deck, so I'm going to share this with you. I don't normally I haven't shared this on the language of healing, but I think it's part of it, because it's like a little self-guide to play with oracle cards. So I've got the Hawaiian Healing Intentions oracle deck, and I love this. It's by Donna Elizabeth Jason with Ha'alilio Solomon. I hope I pronounced that right. But so I was just playing around with that, and I pulled a card that I felt like might resonate with some of the energy that's coming up with this time of year, and it's Ho'olana, overcoming grief. And so this card, it comes with some description and a little intention. It's a really cool deck. I do often use that for myself, and because sometimes it's beyond words, right? Like when our thoughts are spinning, we're trying to make sense of something that doesn't make sense. And the more we can center and ground and pay attention to what's happening around us, there's information there, there's more clarity there. And so this is a practice of using your resources, and this tarot deck is a resource for me, so I'm I'm going to use it today. And I feel like this overcoming grief is a big thing, because there's a lot of grief and sadness. I think there's news that isn't necessarily pleasant. Either we are maybe not feeling well or not doing well, or maybe someone that we love is not feeling and doing well. And that's a lot to process, like and the processing of grief is something that's easily suppressed, right? It's like wipe your tears, turn your frown upside down. Like we have these societal cues that it's allowable and acceptable to feel grief, right? But the when, the where, the how is maybe something that we get stuck in. And then when we get stuck in those emotions, we can spin. So we want to see it, get the information, like spin in it, like wash. We need to wash our clothes every now and again, right? Like wash them, spin them, rinse them, let the dirt go, be refreshed. So around grief, around overcoming grief, I wanted to read this. So grief is the natural and essential process of allowing all the complicated feelings that occur around loss to surface. And this is the spin cycle, when all those complicated feelings come to surface, or they're trying to be heard and seen, recognized. So by allowing yourself to fully experience your feelings, you can move through the grief and reconnect with the joy of life. Above all else, strive to be loving and gentle with yourself as you journey through this transition. And these cards come with an intention as well. So I'll just show you that as I read it. My intention is to allow myself to grieve and to hold myself in loving, patient arms as I move through the complicated feelings related to my loss. Yeah. And so it's interesting because that loss and that grief element is traditionally characterized with the fall energy, like the fall metal energy. But if you look at the cycle of the year, the spring and the fall are opposites, right? So the spring is in its maximum energy right now, the peak, but the fall energy is at its weakest point. So if there is some underlying grief and sadness and complicated feelings, it might actually be pulled to the surface right now. So there's something to maybe consider, right? Like that there's more going on. There's more to the story than what is perceived right now. And the more that we can stop, ground, recenter, and check in, there's a better chance that we can collect that information to help cultivate more of what we want. And yeah, like I said, like there's a lot of difficult and challenging emotions, feelings, thoughts, beliefs coming to surface with the spin, with the wind that spins and creates that cycle, that spin, because its intention is to help us clear out what is, cluttering us, clouding our vision, creating that chaos. Good. So just on that note, because I think that this is an important piece, that, or even pets, I'm just thinking of grieving pets and their loved ones that we just worry about that. And maybe there's part of us that fears that loss, right? Because it's like then the loss of connection. And I'm seeing this too in, with when things get really overwhelming, or when we're really distressed, we tend to dissociate, like disconnect, when really we might need that, or might need and want connection. And so the spring energy is reconnection, it's renewal, it's regrowth, and it takes strength and it takes courage. And there's a lot of really good supporting energy for this right now to overcome some of these things that have been bothering you for a while, or that you've been struggling with. And because, I would say we know, but maybe we don't really, that our thoughts, like these recurring things, can show up in our body. And so if our mind is stressed and we have tension in the mind, emotional distress, our physical body feels tense. And the spring energy, the spring liver time, is related to tendons, like tendons, tension. So you might feel this typical line of like the sideline, like top of shoulders, headaches are big, can be coming up now too, headaches, high blood pressure, things that really stir things up and like outwardly expand explosively, right? So training how to listen in to those subtle cues in our body or in our external environment to recognize that, and like, okay, how do I want to respond to this information versus react emotionally, like maybe I have in the past. So the liver's emotions are anger, irritability, frustration. And when those are repressed or not expressed, it can lead to depression. sadness, grief, like that whole cycle is there. So the springtime is really supportive energy to work through some of that. And so let's go back. Let's do a little exercise, get us back in our body. Sorry, it gets a little heady. I can notice myself in the head, So the idea is when we're in the head a lot that we want to balance it coming back into the body. So taking a breath in, filling your belly and your lungs, a nice exhale out. And you can exhale with sound, just letting it out. Yeah, moving some of that tension. And as you breathe in, your spine elongates. And as you breathe out, you feel tension just draining from your fingers and your toes, feeling your head more relaxed, and gently softening the eyes. And coming back into last season, last winter, or this what we've just moved through, or what we're moving from. So that time around the holidays and the new year, when we welcomed the longer daylight hours. And so just sitting with that, like seeing yourself, being in that moment where you're in this deep, restful place where you had a desire, you had a dream, something that popped up for you, is something you would really like for yourself this year. Something that would really support you in feeling better, looking better, having better relationships, having more impact in your career, having more impact in your volunteering, in your benevolence. So what was it that came up for you around that time that is something that you would really like to see for yourself this year? Good. And checking in now we're in the present here as we transition into this energy of spring, which is taking that desire and we're seeding it. We're creating a space where we're preparing the soil, we're planting the garden. This is, the garden, planning our life, however you want to see that for yourself. So just rechecking in, like let's look at what you wanted then. What was your intention at the beginning of the year or around like the beginning of this renewal energy? Something that you want for yourself. And recalibrate it. Is that true now? Is that still true? Is that still what I want? If anything comes up around that, like maybe what have I encountered, or what more information or what evidence have I gathered since then that might shift my intention to something that's like really truly connected with what I want. So this energy of the springtime is really, really beneficial to support us in getting more clarity, cleaning out what might have been attached to that desire before. It's paring it down, I would say, refining it, recalibrating it. So it's like real and true and centered. It's connected to your authenticity. It's connected to your power. And when you're connected to that innate power within you, it's self-motivating. Notice if your dream or your desire is what someone else might want, or what someone else has suggested, or something that you should do. There might be some conflict there. because it might not be totally authentic and clear within you. So then when something's not clear, you're going to spin, because the spin cycle is designed to make sense of something that doesn't make sense. And so if you find yourself really struggling with the spin around like, oh, I really wanted to do that, but I haven't done it. So now I'm feeling really guilty and really bad. And oh, I messed it up again. So there I go again. That's the spin, right? But maybe that wasn't as connected with something that's a truer desire. And it might be showing you something like a little, we'll call it a shadow bit, or something that needs more light on it. So maybe that, like when you're shifting your intention, you could include that part, right? Like maybe I'm feeling a little bit afraid of taking that leap or that jump, or saying what I really need to say, or laying out some of those boundaries that would help me achieve what I want. So the idea of this as an exercise, so really checking in with what you want. Is it still real and true for you now? And with this clarity, with more clarity around that, it becomes easier to utilize the natural energies of the spring to clear out, design, lay out a path forward. So this last month, March, has been very, geared up for manifesting and receiving miracles and dreaming big. So what have you been dreaming about this last month? Like that, maybe that desire was planted at the beginning of the year with the, resolution type renewal. But this is really the time where we like grow and expand outward. Before there was that time of inward reflection. Now it's like that outward expression. And that can bring up some stuff, maybe some things that keep you stuck. And so we want that fresh start and to stay balanced through the transition. And so here are some tips. We'll go over a few tips on how to transition smoothly through the liver. I'll just lay out real quick what's not a smooth transition through the spring is headaches, lots of headaches, muscle tension, tight TMJ, irritability, being frustrated, anger, maybe some eye things like blurry vision, eye twitches, muscle spasms, lack of focus, lack of clarity, feeling disconnected from your purpose. You could see poor sleeping patterns, poor digestion, and the emotional distress is a big thing. So those are some things that you might watch out for if it's a little bit out of balance, and what you can do to prevent that or work with that are, number one, paying attention to the natural energies and feelings of this time and using them to your advantage. So we have more daylight. So even if it's like waking up and opening up your curtains and just like really receiving that light. So receiving that light, like getting more vitamin D, helping our immune system, helping support our, like resilience to life. When we really feel really full and strong, it does boost our immune response, right? Like our immunity is our defense, our first line of defense in the skin and in the lungs, and so when our digestion, like that's something that's very important in keeping us healthy and strong through the seasons. So So yeah, pay attention to the natural things, like, and taking in the beauty. So this time of year is really about appreciating beauty, nature, right? Like looking at the trees, noticing the buds, noticing how the trees are moving in the wind, noticing the light, noticing the birds, noticing, the sounds of people outside, children playing. There's these sounds that are associated with the renewal. So paying attention to that. It's a good time then, number 2, to pay attention to diet, nutrition. So it's a good time to get in your leafy greens. Green is the color of spring. So getting more balanced with our green veggie intakes, and you can like lightly cook them, lightly steam cook them so they're a bit warm, not totally raw, so like a bit warm and easy for our body to digest. And eating at small regular increments is good for the liver. It keeps the liver content and functioning optimally. So diet, paying attention to that, like just eating more things that are cleansing. And a lot of people do liver cleanses at this time of year, right? Or, well, maybe it's the best time to do a cleanse, I would say. People will do liver cleanses at all time of year because they think it's, you think it's good to help cleanse, but really there's a specific energy. Because if you cleanse the body too strongly in the winter, for example, like your energy is really, really deep. It's more in like reserve mode. It's not in cleansing mode. So when the natural energy comes from the winter up into the spring and it wants to clean, like that's when you clean. That's when you clean. And then the summer, you're expanding even more. You're kind of in that, like that brightness. And so it's also there's a lot of energy to support cleansing, right? Because you have a lot of energy. But the fall time, when we go back in deeper, you're trying to like build and preserve. And so it's not the best time to be cleaning out. You can, like, of course, reorganize a little bit. There is that these natural things all the year, but the best time to cleanse your body and your mind and your spirit and your heart is in the springtime, when we have that outward expression and spring cleaning vibes. So liver cleanses, if you do, I would just really keep it basic. Like eat foods that are simple and natural and fresh, just fresh, right? Home cooked, fresh meals. Things like dandelion, peppermint, and milk thistle, something you might have heard of before, to really help support the liver. So we want the liver to be smooth and directing the free flow of chi, right? Which is like almost our life force. It's like whatever chi is, like the material, immaterial aspects of it. The liver really wants to like take it, digest it, break it down, and then sort it. Organize it. So it's really planning and organizing, sorting, and your body's doing the same thing. So give it things that are easy to digest and fresh and vibrant, and give it like nutrients, right? To do all of these amazing functions. So that's nutrition. Meditation is another simple tip, practical tip for this time of year. Meditate. And what do I mean by meditation? There's so many like, what does meditation mean to you? I just want to ask you that and to reflect in with that. Because to me, meditation is training the mind or training the body to focus in, to be more present, to be noticing and paying attention to things. So meditation, there's also different forms, like levels of meditation, I would say. So a good place to start is with concentration and focus. And so that with the concentration and focus, you have more clarity on the direction, right? Because if you're indecisive, in the pattern of indecisiveness, there is that chaotic spin happening, right? So the more clarity and the more stillness you can create for yourself to not be spinning and to really get the information that's around you. Meditation is a really supportive thing. Meditating to me is centering myself, finding level and feeling level and in tune. Ooh, I like that so much, Rachel. Feeling level and in tune. I like that, in tune, because I think that there's, when we are resonating, we do have frequency. It's like our song. So yeah, any musicians or musically inclined people could resonate to that of, what would be a sound of spring, right? Or a sound of renewal to you. And even just like meditating, like music can bring you into meditation as well, right? It's something that it's like when you're in the zone. So just doing something that you naturally that you move naturally towards, you're naturally good at and that you naturally enjoy, right? So painting a picture as well. Yeah, singing birds or waterfalls. Oh my gosh, yeah. Those are awesome. It's just like, Google or YouTube has like just hours of waterfalls or bird songs, like ocean waves. It's really something like that can help you get into that sensory movement, right? That we need this time of year. Yeah. Anyway, this time of year is really about like regaining your inner path, realigning with your inner path, inner direction. And when we're not moving with acceptance, we're moving with resistance. And this is where we can meet resistance that lands in our body or in our mind or in our heart. Like our physical body resistance could create tension and like feeling tense and headachy and just like poor digestion, the resistance of like spinning thoughts, repetitive thoughts, trying to figure out what's not making sense. Was there, okay, what else could we add? The wind. Okay, this is one of my favorite spring hacks is wearing a scarf, protecting your neck, because the wind is strong this time of year, right? It's like bringing the winds of change. So when you protect your neck with a scarf or like a hoodie or something, you cover those points where the wind can come in and invade your body. Like in Chinese medicine, we have like how we have internal factors and external factors, and the wind could be an external factor that would enter your body and create some restlessness or some tension, some of those windy conditions like spasms, even strokes, like epilepsy, like those kinds of things are a little bit windy conditions where we're, shaking, and also connected to the headaches as well. So just paying attention to that. If you have any questions or something comes up for you this week or throughout the springtime, reach out to me. You can find me at The Language of Healing TV on Facebook and YouTube, and at on Instagram. thelanguageofhealingradio.com is the website. And you can find all my links there, like Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, even my email. Drop me an email. We'd love to hear about your spring rituals and how you clean and organize for your next year. What are you planning for your garden? I would love to hear that. I love pretty flowers and plants and all the happy things. So keep easy, keep moving freely, free and easy wanderer. It all does come out in the wash. Stay centered and grounded and enjoy the light, receive the light, receive that spirit of renewal. And what will you take with you from this conversation that will support you for the rest of your life?
Wow, what a show today, and the journey does not stop here. Come travel the world with Nicole every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time as together we become more fluent in the language of healing on W4CY Radio and Talk 4 TV. See you next week.